Excuse the wet shirt. I had to wash my face, which is fairly greasy. I've been awake all night, kind of from an emotionally stressful situation, which is expected and part of this process. But what I want to make a video about is pretty much 2 or 3 things. One, speaking on these issues is cathartic. It helps the healing process. It helps the letting go. It's not about making it more. It's not about getting back at anybody. It's not about making an issue out of a personal discrepancy. It's about looking within yourself and seeing what it is that is vulnerable within you that connects with something somebody says or something that happens to you that harms you emotionally and creates a downward cycle of spiritual degradation, basically self-disrespect, and more or less drops a person down to the level that they feel insulted from somebody else and creates this volley of insults back and forth, which becomes a spiritual battle, an emotional battle. The main thing is that battle, I've seen it and I understand the basics, but that battle is used to feed interdimensional parasites. I wrote something on this recently. It is, I think, the viral parasitic consciousness. I'll put a link to that in the video description. And there's another video. It's by Dr. Who is it? Virtual, I think. I'll have to look this up. He does, Dr. Virtual 7. I was briefed on this information. I was briefed on nearly everything that I can look at it. I informed people, I disclosed that the process of briefing is to look into the mind. They use tachyon fields to take that person's trajectory, the information, basically turn the brain into a computer, and then treat it like a supercomputer and allow for faster than light transmission by filtering the mind through a supercomputer system. This has to do with the chips and the cloning, but with that system they can alter the rate of information, the flow, and literally open up a tachyon field which enables information to come from the future before it gets there. It's a strange thing, but they can distort that, basically create a lens, and they can follow somebody through the trajectory of their life. And they matches to hundreds of thousands of people, but there's basically breakaway civilizations as well as basically there's dark and a light faction. That's the basic the breakdown of it. But and both pretty much use this technology. There's just some that use it to stress people and control and manipulate them for these hybrid experimentations, and others use it for basically preparing you for what is to come and so on. My memory's probably going to be screwed because I've been awake all night. The other thing is that, Dr. Virtual, he makes these videos. I was briefed on the information, the tones in certain videos. Okay, these can be used to influence a person's mind to produce healing, things like that. But as well, I don't trust a lot of other binaural beats and solfeggios. I think that's how you say it, solfeggio. Tones and things like that, because a lot of them can be used to have these overlays or underlays that induce these trance states, and the higher technology can input. They can do anything with it. They can literally like hide a movie inside the tones of a certain sound. I look kind of tired. I look almost like a zombie again. There's another video I made which I might not release. I might release, which was where I woke up in extreme pain again, and it was crazy. But I kind of want to release it because the previous video, where I had these I'm trying to describe these experiences, well, basically with the time machine, and it's like I had to go through some type of very, very difficult period in order for me to be able to comprehend these memories or these experiences later on. And I realized that where there's times where I'm like at a neutral zone and I get like seemingly hit hard, usually after that the rebound is some type of strength. And so it's like I don't know, I don't like blame anything. I don't hold to these painful experiences as if it's something that I have to hide from. But as well, what I wanted to make this video for is that from the basically the stress that I was under, I thought I was going to have to go seek help and call help. My stomach was tore up. I was having real bad chest pains. My blood pressure was up and down. It was all off, all over the place. And it was starting to affect the brain condition that I have, this issue that I have, which I don't really want to disclose because it's kind of personal, but it is horrifying. It's dangerous if pressure increases. And I practiced these emotional clearing methods, and I got down and dirty with what was really causing these issues, and confronting what I was either hiding or shying away from, or feeling overly vulnerable and sensitive to in terms of basically other people that were, in a way, probing me emotionally. And I hope nobody feels targeted or put on the spot by this, because I'm sure there are people who will see this and think something of it. But in that sense, in practicing these motions, which I stopped self-healing years ago. Literally like 5 or 6 years ago, I stopped because I basically went into a very, very emotionally reactive and purposefully, basically like a dark area. And so I've kind of like waited on people to heal and for the thing that's going to come. But that's the whole point of saying this. By going through this situation, this aspect, this stress, I was literally up all night. I couldn't sleep, and I was trying to sleep. I was literally trying to sleep, and I was like tossing and turning, and I would literally like fall asleep and then wake up. It's literally like if you have a fever and you have like fever dreams where you're like half in and out of reality. I was stressed to that point where I was literally in and out of this reality. And when I focused and went through the methods that I know of, I feel like I can run around, and I can't run around anyway because of my condition. But say it wasn't there, I wouldn't be able to, and that's probably not good anyway. Like say I still skateboarded or something, it wouldn't be good to stay up all night and go do something like that. So I probably wouldn't do it. But the point is, I literally don't have the pain that I just had a little bit ago. I also used an enema, so that might have something to do with it. But it doesn't account for everything, because I should be passed out completely, like done. I should be done right now. And I have a real clean diet. I don't eat too much, and I don't, and it's not diet, it's food intake. But I don't eat too much, and I don't eat processed foods. I don't eat junk, really. So it's very easy to overcome when one is tired, and when one is basically held back. Oh, my underwear in view, excuse me. And so, one of the first things is that there's emotional, what we were briefed on, and part of what I was literally instructed to as the basis for what is to come is that there are what are called etheric attachments. These are literally either technology, meaning somebody using a device can create folds of energy which operates exactly the same as a logical function, like a row of commands in a program, but it's through intention and energy-wise. And people have heard of chi balls and things like that. Well, imagine you have a big supercomputer doing it for you. You can make a ball that goes and tell somebody to like giggle or something. Okay, so imagine there's one that's like feel insecure about this, and then probe this fear that the programmer knows the person has, because they can examine everybody's lives and they have all their data information on files and stuff. So they make these little mind control gadgets out of energy that go in and basically attach interdimensionally to the person's energy field, and they'll stay there because it's kind of like a fish hook or something. The pull to resist is what strengthens the hook, the parasitic investment, if you will, or like entrainment of that system. And so there's etheric attachments, and I've spoken on this before, but I was waiting. Everything about this has been controlled disclosure. Nobody likes that word, controlled disclosure. Well, the regular disclosure doesn't cut it, because people just don't really care, pretty much. And it's their own system, salvation or depression at the very least, and complete damnation at the very most. Basically soul distortion. But and so from the beginning, this is about. But as I had to go through unveiling very, very dark things, and to do that, I had to stay in the area where I was in contact with that trauma, with that darkness, with that part of what I had seen. I'm pretty much past that point now, and everything that I've made has lined up with what I was shown and told was going to happen and is happening. When I first came out, people weren't really talking about the events that much, from James Caswell, Donald Marshall, and Max Spears, and there are others, but they're not as vocal, and so I don't want to put their names out there. Now there's pedogate talk, timeline, Mandela effect talk. There's noticing this, all of a sudden people are just like, wait, what are they doing? There's corruption in high places all over. It's fraudulent. The system is basically being exposed for what it really is. There's celebrity cloning. People are catching on to advanced technology, space, cosmic events, the illusion of a lot of these operations. People talking about secret space programs. It's basically inching its way into mainstream, but it's not mainstream because mainstream is fake stream. It's not real at all. And a lot of it is controlled disclosure of a controlled aspect, meaning it's people just kind of going out there to parrot off articles and things like that and make a little name for themselves, which is fine if that's what they're going to do, but there's another layer of it where there's basically, I'm going to tell you I was told about these things and I was involved with them and I was told to bring this to disclosure because everything in the society is a show. It is designed from behind the scenes by those with advanced knowledge and technology, and nothing that happens, no events that happen, nothing in the newspaper happened. It's all planned and mapped out according to this show. Basically, it's a show. And as well, there are basically a larger portion of clones in this society and non-human entities than we would think. And I don't observe the concept of aliens, as people call that, or call them, or the whole space and all that stuff. Is not, in my opinion, what it seems to be or what it's made out to be. It's closer to something like an interdimensional, kind of computational consciousness simulation system, and it has to do more with time than it does with distance, and it has to do with these layers of a kind of mind matrix that more or less creates realities out of a person's intentions and creativity or lack of creativity, and is formulated out of a device that someone designed. The last video talked about this. The transcendental object at the end of time is actually at the beginning. And yes, he was an operative, for anybody that knows where that's from. And he told people anyway. So it's weird. Like what I say is, what I mean about the synchronizing of these, everything is that this year is supposed to be a big event, just like last year was. At least from my opinion, and if you were paying attention to any of this, is big. No one's ever talking about any of these things now. It's less than there's people talking about it. Okay, that's the first time in history this has gone on since ancient times. Okay, it's big. And we're in a window of opportunity, and it's supposed to be, something big is supposed to be happening this year. I don't like to deal with dates or anything like that, but it is what it is. And as I was saying, it seems like now I'm at the level where I'm comfortable to move on to what is described as the healing aspects. Basically, deprogramming codes, DNA activation processes, system, basically deprogramming, or you could look at it like an activation program. There's nothing really inherently wrong about a program. It's just automation is not necessarily free will, and in that sense, automation can be used either or, to basically degrade a person or to forcibly rip out these etheric implants, these attachments, these traumas. And I was shying away from it for a while, and Cindy Carter, I believe, who does, I have the worst memory with people that I'm friends with, but she provides a healing service. I'll put a link to that. And it must have been about a year ago, I had the first of any type of service or controlled meditation or anything like that I've ever had. And it was weird. I felt her doing things in her mind that was doing things to my energy body, influencing my body, where she put pressure. And I checked it and I was like, okay, so what'd you do there? And what'd you do there? Like running through it. And where she was like, I put pressure over here and there was a knot by your rib. I felt pressure before she told me that. And it was everything that she was doing with her mind I was feeling. And I felt like this release. And I felt at the end there's like a jerk where she, well, it sounds weird, she puts you back into your body. and I felt a piece of myself return. And before that and after, I was also informed there would be soul retrievals, which are basically due to the fact that they use the souls of us from the projects, the children, to survive. They use them to live off of. They basically eat soul energy. They use it like a tether to keep them connected to this dimension. It's strange. It's very complicated. It has to do with alternate realities and people who came here from alternate realities and are basically interdimensional controllers, rulers, overlords, and again, I don't blame anyone, because half of this we're under soul contract, which is where we basically agreed to do this, which is kind of weird in its own right, and maybe a aspect of illusion, but I don't think so, because when you say, okay, well, I'm done with this aspect, let's move on, you move on to it. It's all controlled, self-guided. It's the strangest thing. It's like a show. But the point is, as I'm closer to this now, I automatically self-healed, and from this previous situation, and I realized that is what is happening now. That is the phase we are in. We're moving into a area of an opportunity to self-heal, to strengthen ourselves, to really get at it, because it's not going to happen on its own. And if it does, it's going to hurt a lot more, because it sucks really bad. I've seen the Ascension device, I've seen the automatic clearing devices, and they beam you with energy that is the opposite of the stuff that basically causes all these traumas. And it's literally like somebody who's so hurt, like in a hostage situation, and the guy's like, okay, calm down, give me the knife, blah, blah. And it's like, no, you know, it's the same thing, only we're doing it to ourselves, and we're holding ourselves hostage on an energetic level, and they can use technology to beam that out of you, to grab it and pull it out of you. And it hurts like that. It's like letting go. But so you don't really want to have to be forced to do that. And that's actually what all this is about, because if a person is so deep and they're forced to do that, it could kill them. It could cause irreversible damage. Speaking of damage. And so, as I was saying, this seems to be all coming in this synchronized, synchromistic convergence of what has happened, what is happening, and what we know, and will basically what is being unveiled to the entire civilization. As from the secret projects, the secret societies, the corruption, the advanced technology, the true nature of reality, and the human consciousness, cosmic intelligence, so on and so forth. And so, there are etheric attachments. There are etheric entities as well. There's like a technological version. People, you can create the what we call magic, black magic, the symbolism, the intention added to it, and the energy provided for these symbols. They create egregores, or thought form beings, that enter into the etheric field and collect or connect or accrete within the mind of whoever they're targeted to. And so that's a form of magic, that's a form of attachment. It's literally an interdimensional device, a map of reality and mind that they draw out with these ancient symbols that have been used for years and focused on until they mean this, imprinted into the soul of humanity, the electromagnetic field, and they send them out and input them into the field. It's a form of magic. So, but I mean, it's literally like a technological system. It's a device. If you could see some type of magic vision, interdimensional goggles, you would see what they do with that, and you would see a code leave that and enter in like a Wi-Fi signal into reality and find the intended person, or they can just be made for anybody who is vulnerable. And so they're like intelligent little systems that create just with their mind. And that's the other aspect, that everything is a form of technology and intelligence. You could literally have intelligent water that you drink it and it heals you. Like, that's the whole point. Everything is consciousness-based, everything is intelligent, everything is alive. And we're made to think it's just computers and engines and people and animals, and that's it. Everything else is just dead. And computers and engines and stuff, well, they do work, but they're not truly alive, but they make change. The point is, everything is alive. And so, step up a level and see computers and video games and AI systems, all that, they are actually alive. There's an artificial dimension that is created when we give them life. Just like if a kid's playing with toys or something, okay, there's a portion of that person's consciousness that is devoted to making that thing alive, the toy alive. And in another dimension, in our imagination, it actually exists and it feels and things like that. It's really weird, but that's what it is. And in a way, this world is that for a larger being. And it's also the imitation of an original world. So there are etheric attachments, and these are like devices, interdimensional entrainment, parasitic devices, and then there are etheric entities, which are literal parasitic organisms, and they are not created in the sense of the magic, although there are kinds that are created through that, and they become, these egregores are basically considered a form of living entity that's created out of mind. But there are discarnate entities that are basically these interdimensional parasites. There are emotional attachments, which are one of the main ways that that process of entrainment works. You can have a frequency entrainment. It's just like you have a sheet and it ripples, and that's your energy. Imagine you put a rock or a tack or a pin or a knot in the fabric of the sheet. That's an entanglement. That's an etheric attachment, and when energy tries to go up a certain level, that holds it down and governs the energy, kind of like on a car, and it pulls that energy. They usually put a resonator there, and then another person in one of these other societies has the resonator, and they put them right there or there or there, and when you go up and you feel that pull your energy down, they get pumped up, and they feed off of the energy of people by doing that. It's parasitic. And so, yeah, so then the other aspect, because that's kind of technical, is that there is, the other layer is emotional. And it's also said that there's an emotional body, there's an etheric or temporal body, there's a mental body, there's a pain body, there's a spiritual body, and there's a physical body. And I think there are 7 in all, so I missed them. But that's the point, that they can literally put this machine that has overlays, kind of like, I don't know, like an X-ray machine or something, and they can show you where in these 7 bodies each form of technology is. So it's a scientist, not just like hoopla, which is, there's a lot of the stuff that is, but as well, the strange thing is that if you make something up, it still exists because our minds make it real. And so they mastered the ability to do this. And they is a really bad, corrupted, vague term. But it is what it is. There's thousands of people that are involved with this, these various groups. It's mainly that there's 2 groups, there's a light and a dark faction. Some say they work together. It's all one big show, that the angels and the demons work together for God to push people towards one way or the other. Enlightenment or the actual ascension, or just coming to terms with reality. And making a choice, basically, and showing the true colors. And so, and there's these layers. But the second way of understanding the layer is that there's an emotional entanglement. There are emotional attachments, emotional entanglements, and these are closely related to or understood as trauma points. There are points in one's memory where there was a traumatic experience where what happened to them was so far outside of what they expected that a part of themselves could not accept that that happened, and now there's a part of themselves that knows this happened deeper under the conscious mind, and the one that talks to people and confronts these things and acts basically as the living being. And there's a part, usually at the higher, illusory, outer consciousness egoic form, that completely ignores it, and it can, at the least of these types of distortions, one ignores it, and they know they're ignoring it. At the higher level, they completely black out, and there is a distinct split between the conscious mind that talks to people and the unconscious part of the system that knows everything. One way to understand this, in early psychology they theorized this, that the actual subconscious mind and the conscious mind is designed by the introduction of trauma from the brain being incapable of processing information through the basically difficulties in childhood, which develops skills, talents, motivation, catalysts, but also basically shatters the personality and creates these fragmented persona, or this fragmented persona, which we call ego, which is what we call when we go outside and talk to people. And having these masks, I think like the Japanese say, hopefully, that you have 3 masks: one you show to people, one you show to only yourself, and one you hide from. Did I say it wrong? I think I said it wrong. One you show to people you meet, and one you show to your friends, and then one you only show to yourself. But I think there's actually 3 or 4. I usually take these idioms and extend them, because there's even one that you can't show yourself. If that might be the original one, I don't know, look it up. There's one that you can't show yourself until you merge the shadow and the light concepts, the unconscious mind, and it's literally like deep sea scuba diving into this subconscious. It's like going into another world, and you're within yourself, because who you are is just a concept, and what going into your unconscious mind is also just a concept. But the point is, to your unconscious mind, this world and all your experiences are held within the brain. So as well, who you are being within the brain, this world, who you are in your unconscious mind is all one thing, when you really, really come to terms with it and see it. So in that sense, all your experiences, what you feel, you have an entire world within you. And so more or less everyone has trauma points where there is a split between the conscious and unconscious mind, and it is due to regressed memories that shape who you are and alter tendencies that are outside of conscious control but cannot be altered until one understands what exactly caused these memories, these trauma points. And like I think Jung said that's fate, that man will either man, I'm not doing too good today. Basically, what was it? Confront his unconscious, or the unconscious will control his life and he will call it fate. Meaning it'll be things that he doesn't have control over. Women do. Women don't get a freebie, although they kind of do, because the emotional connection to source, or this true underlying nature, is stronger in women, and it is the essence of healing. It is the essence of knowing the self. Although everything is thrown out in this society to make it a big circus show, to make it a big battle. It's a big psychic battle with everyone, men and women in that regards specifically. And if you can look into the ovulation cycles and why humans have different ovulation cycles than every other animal, and how that works, and the cycles of the moon. And you can simply, something I wrote about recently, you simply ask yourself, sex is how we procreate, how we physically maintain and reproduce. Okay, so who had sex with who to put the first person of your bloodline here? There has to be a supernatural act in order to begin that. A little off track here, but the point is that that supernatural act is something related to our destiny and what we have access to, what we have power to, and it overcomes all limitations. But to enable that, or at least to come in contact with that, we have to overcome the mundane conscious limitations that cause basically regression. Basically, they ran through this when I was briefed on it. All the, was it DVSM or something like that, DSM? All the psychological distortions, the fetishes, the traumas, the phobias, the irrational fears, which is a phobia basically, the habits and addictions, every psychological disorder that humanity has is a result, of this so-called cosmic insanity issue of this, was basically an ego, and it's a split between higher and lower conscious, or the unconscious mind and the conscious ego, and that as well kind of relates to the higher mind as well. And meaning at some point we didn't have that split, and we were in contact with their ancestors, even if they weren't alive. We were in contact with their genetic memory and in control of accessing every dream, and dreaming at that point was journeying out into these internal realms, not just like, whatever, we can't explain why, maybe your brain's just making stuff up. And if you didn't know, your dreams are the most reliable source of information about what is going on in your psyche in this universe. Unless you have a dream machine somewhere where you can walk into it and it makes your dream external and you can look around and actually physically interact with it. Your dreams are that system. They're the gift for that. And we have to manage that, because outside this plane we're constantly dreaming. And so if you just imagine, like Alan Watts says, imagine falling asleep and never waking up. How do you know you're dreaming? Usually when you wake up to the reality and realize that was the dream. So what would happen if you never woke up? It's kind of weird there. So then at the other end he says, imagine waking up but never having fallen asleep. Never having the memory of falling asleep at first. Never having fell asleep at first, better way to say it. And so imagine waking up but never having fallen asleep. I don't know. Those are the open-ended, it's kind of like a line that goes on to infinity. It's an open-ended line segment that is a projection system that we're kind of attached to and stepping down into. And but there is, the solution to that is a supernatural event. I don't want to say ascension or enlightenment, these are kind of corrupted. It's the liberation from this matrix system, this linear timeline, this construct. And it has to do a lot with overcoming fear, a little bit, or maybe a lot with the intellectual aspect of knowing how to kind of piece together these portions of yourself that are split up and drawing them back together. But the main part of that is you don't grab them and put them together. It's about healing. It's an intuitive, emotional healing aspect. And so the idea is that these trauma points, these emotional entanglements and attachments, now I can't even remember where I started. They have to be healed and drawn together, and it's through going back and examining what is causing us to act in certain ways, and in doing that, regaining the power that was taken away from us through the event which altered the memory. And I can't remember where I was going to go with that, but those are the first 3 layers, the basic understanding of what is basically the series of distortions that is related to this whole system. And one aspect I can recall is that all those disorders in that big book that they have, which is like 3 layers, I can't remember the name. It's theorized that these exist here because of a spiritual psychotronic warfare, which was a massive break, a traumatic event in the history of the species that caused a kind of schizophrenic, energetic, spiritual fall from grace, or the fall of man. And from that point on, this egoic kind of separation from the higher and lower began. And now the tiredness is coming through because I'm expending all my energy doing this. But so the main thing, I think I remember a little bit of it now. The main thing is that where we have these attachments, there is something that's acting as a kind of attractor. It's kind of like a light with bugs or something, or the sense, like your breath is CO2 you exhale attracts the bugs. There's an attractor, whether it's an object, a person, relationships are a big issue with this. Whether it is a job, like an environment that we can't seem to get away from, an aspect of possibly the family. Something in our lives acts as an anchor that continues a introduction or a connection of the energy of that trauma within our lives that intrudes upon us consciously and causes these deviations, but that we are not more or less confident enough and strong enough and aware enough, or at least not letting ourselves be strong enough to overcome this by first becoming aware of it. All you have to do to overcome it is acknowledge it. And when you acknowledge it, there's a detangling effect, a disengaging, and the power of that regressed memory, whatever the event is, that holds an irrational fear, a tendency that one can't get over. Whatever it is in the conscious mind that we do that we feel like we don't have access to control, that disappears and we gain the control once we connect the memory or the object, the anchor point, with the distortion in ourselves, with the undesirable dreams, or people pee their pants or something like that. I'm not going to really get too far into these disorders, but they're all there. Mainly just irrational fears, phobias, and things that hold us back and create suffering and limit us. These act as catalysts, but we have to convert them into knowledge, and the knowledge is about who we are, ourselves, our story, and when we gain that, it turns into a power. There's also an excuse of why a lot of these things are done, because they're like, oh, we're not traumatizing humanity, we're making them stronger, because you're going to overcome it, and nothing's going to hurt you that way, which is, I'll let you decide on all that. But, and so, I'm waiting on somebody too. There's a whole method, there's a whole way of scanning your mind, your memory, and your life for the signs and symbols of an attachment to a trauma point, which is it's going to be indicative by having these distortions in your conscious mind, where you can't let go of something, you can't move on, you have a desire that you want to attain something, or you want to be free from something, but you can't seem to position yourself in your life or organize things just the right way to find what it is that you're looking for, or to remove what it is that's holding you back. And as well, this is how the mind works, these paradoxes, is that until that point comes where the person is confident, strong, and aware enough to, I don't know why I skipped a finger, and aware enough to focus on things, if anybody caught that, until that point, they hold on to that trauma, and if somebody tries to, it's like a comfort teddy bear or blanket or something, somebody tries to take it away, so no, this is hindering you, this is your crutch, your hinge of healing that you have to let go. They hold on to it, and you can't rip it out of their hands because they'll scream and cry, and it is like, it threatens them. It threatens the sovereignty of the illusory mind, which feels threatened by the illusions of the necessity to hold on to that which we are afraid to let go of energetically and mentally. Not something that's going to actually physically hurt you, but something that you don't want to let go of because it gives you an emotional, sentimentality. I'm not going to even pronounce. An emotional sentiment. And, Elmer Fudd. And it's the weirdest thing, but everybody knows it. Every fear we have, every little subtle hint at fear is one of these traumas. That's the weird thing. That's the weird thing, that fear itself exists only because of this psychic, conscious, unconscious personality schizophrenia that everyone on the planet has. And that the human condition is that psychic insanity. And it's the acceptance of fear. It's living in lack of confidence, letting false kings rule over us. From the false king of tyranny definition, Lisa Renee, energetic synthesis. Remember, anyway, I talked about her. Look it up. And all the things that people do to allow the debauchery, the degradation, the lies, the confusion. The problem is not out there. It's not the fact that they own this, they own that. They're lying to everyone. People can't get over it. They just go to the club. They do this and that. The problem is in people. When people disengage from that aspect of trauma that keeps us low enough, ducking down just to avoid being targeted or basically drawn into the light, it's us that we're hiding from. It's ourselves, what we're basically harboring and holding back. And this is because everybody has trauma. But it's confusing because as well, the trauma is what we're born into because the way the brain is configured, there's an automatic induction of trauma just from being born. But as well, when we don't basically adjust well enough to overcome the limitations, and it develops into these setbacks, if you will, and natural capabilities, these psychic abilities, contacting the genetic level of memory, this soul level of awareness, this massive self-healing power, all these abilities, they're restricted. We don't get access to them. We're in like a very, very weakened, low intelligence, low emotionally stabilized state, and that's why we seek pleasure, comfort, and security from the illusions of food and sensory pleasure, social acceptance, all the things that we think we need because we're more or less told to, or because other people do it and we just assume that we don't actually need and are actually the source of the problem. Or at least a secondary source of the problem where we have an initial problem, then we go to a secondary source to solve it, and it recreates the problem, and we have this vicious cycle. And if you followed me this far, you probably know, if you've been reading and watching up until now, you know that our society is based upon this disorder. It's based upon sickness. It's based upon illness, on addiction, on fear, on the illusion, on trying to stay alive so powerfully or so much that people forget to live, forget to feel, forget to remain human and empathic. Empathic. I think anyway, you can spell it both ways, maybe. I think they're slightly two different words. This is what I do when I'm tired and my words just kind of like bounce around. And so the first idea is examining oneself. I'm going to cut this probably within like 10 minutes. Is examining oneself, and you can go on for hours with this because there's so many methods and nature behind it. It's best to try and convert it into one that basically describes this and begins the process, or fits the process for everyone. Excuse me for my mustache combing. And so the easiest way is just like a microscope or you're analyzing somebody's frequencies or a sound bite. You take a measurement. You take a sample measurement. And so the easiest way is to sit and record a day, a time, a year, or whatever it is, and you make a recording of your emotional patterns, of the tendencies that you know are cycling through your existence that you'll find out sooner or later whether they're one way or the other. In extreme cases, you'll already know because this will be something that traumatizes you continuously, or that you've been trying to get over for years because you're put in situations where a type of mental or emotional liberation is kind of like required, and you can't get through that situation. You can't, get out, or you can't go through a certain experience because you withdraw because of this problem that is within. And so in extreme cases, you'll already know. Main thing is to record the tendencies, the choices one makes, and anything that sticks out. And you will notice it is the frequency of events, of choices, of habitual, recurring situations and responses, kind of like reactions. You'll know the frequency where there are certain aspects of your behavior being triggered at certain times and in certain places. And the point is, if it's triggering because of an external feature, it's not you doing it. It's not your behavior. It's not your personality. Well, it's not you. It's your personality. It's a configuration that's within you that is holding you back, that you use to describe yourself, but is not who we are. And so that's one way, and it's the basic way it's done, at least to begin with, to find out what's really going on. Because when you see the frequency and you draw out a matrix of your behavioral pattern, your schema, you'll realize where it is that we're basically being played kind of like a puppet by these emotional systems. The highest degree of this, the people who are basically controlling everything, they don't actually have free time. Everything on that list is a parasite controlling them, and they know it because this whole thing is a big experiment. I gotta stretch my shoulder. And so it's very, very real, very powerful and important. But that is the beginning of healing, and eventually, then there are techniques and methods to go back through one's life and figure out why this event is tied to one of the artifacts in your life, whether it's an experience, a person, an actual object that you keep around, the aspect of a location, an addiction, a habitual something or other, something that's persisting, and why this. Did I say it's the object? Either that or the habitual cycle of what you're doing, connected to an object or something present in your life, and then connected to your memory. The first two are kind of the same thing, but there's a difference between them because usually there's an effect of the memory that changes our mentality. Then usually there's these anchor points, which are secondary healing methods, or like self-medication methods, and these they result in a vicious cycle of abuse, basically, of recurring issues. And you'll see where the comfort object or habitual like self-medication aspect is. You'll see that's a cover for something much deeper. And wherever we have these little debts or these small issues, there's actually cover for something much deeper, which is hidden, and we're attaching to that small issue to hide from ourselves the real issue. And so the point is that the modern Western psychology version of this is called psychotherapy, but it's outside of psychotherapy. It's outside of all the psychologies that we've used today or have been used. There's a couple others. My memory's not too good right now. Now I'm going to pass out in a little after I make this video. But it's beyond all of that, because all those were slightly skewered. They were older versions, and they don't actually cover the full truth. Reframing, emotional reframing, reassessing the situation, but the basis of it is first through analyzing. That's where the psychoanalysis comes through. Although psychotherapy is not the complete school of knowledge that is used to heal. I'm really not sure if there is a complete one, but it's related to all this, and mainly it's about finding the trauma point, connecting it to the whatever initiated the regression initially. And all you gotta do is become aware of it and connect the two, and it loses its power, because every time that cycle basically tries to revive itself, for some reason, knowing what is causing it, it does not cause that vicious cycle to occur, and it gets less now every time you see it. And that's emotional attachment, which is that, what I was saying is that is how these other systems are anchored in. If one's free of emotion, or free of the emotional attachments, the tendency to attach to pleasure, or to, in that sense, to fear and basically hiding from their own truth, the other methods don't work. The magic, the etheric attachment, which can be literally energetic implants into the body, these type of interdimensional parasites that people call mind parasites or demons or whatever you want to call them, they're like nightmares that exist in a mental plane and can literally jump from person to person. And they don't have power unless we're in a low, regressed, emotionally limited state where we can't process what is required to be processed in order to basically process out these vibrations, these entanglements, these ideas because we have a natural spiritual immune system that when we're in high enough energy and high enough processing, naturally is resilient to the trauma, the fear, the depression, or basically these distractions that are used to entangle people and literally suck energy from them and cycle into these other realms or these other societies that feed on people in a vampiric fashion. And so it's like those extra versions, if you will, are the secondary or extrapolated versions of the initial emotional trauma that occurs within us and that we have to allow to continue to happen in order for those other ones to work. And so this whole thing is about everyone getting on their game or their stuff, whatever you want to call it, and taking the initiative to begin to heal themselves and first analyze, and secretly we already know where the issues are and what's really going on. It's basically intuitive, and intuitive isn't the greatest word to use because it can mean everything or anything. You know, this is intuition, or I was intuitively led to that. The point is, in this sense, it's, in my opinion, useful because you intuitively know what you are most afraid of and what holds you back the most. And when you are fully honest with yourself, you can access that, and you can begin to heal yourself and work through what are seemingly barriers and blocks and setbacks in your memory and your personality. And ultimately, that is how these barriers, these setbacks, these attachments, that is how the fragmented personality is set up. That is how humanity, the soul of humanity, was fragmented into a multi-dimensional layer of existence that we call this time matrix, whatever you want to call it, where our memories are cut off. There are other civilizations, other eras that we have access to that we write about, but nobody remembers directly, or some people remember directly. And there's devices that can be used to basically connect your DNA and your memory, and you have instant revelation of that other side. But if you're not capable of holding up that frequency, it'll go away. And as well, if your energy is real high, that's what will feed a parasite. So if you don't know how to overcome the fear and trauma and things like that, a person will become a target as a result of connecting with that well of energy. And all of this is supposed to be coming back. The point is, one thing is the celebrities are largely in use through the system, and that is where a lot of these personality disorders or outward displays come from. It's from fractured personalities, from being used more or less through this program. But the idea is the entirety of humanity is within this program. The soul of humanity is fragmented. This is because of trauma that occurred thousands upon thousands of years ago, and as well, this whole time is about the trauma, the realms, and the multiple personalities coming back together into one. This is what a lot of people call the Mandela effect, with these Mandela or these memory changes, and these are like etheric implants for the realm that are holding events of history in position, not of your body, but in history, and they're being removed, and now the fields are merging. And so in the same sense, etheric fields within the body are being healed, and the energy is increasing, and people's memories are altering. And so then the emotional aspect begins to heal, and when the emotional aspect is healed, the multiple personalities merge back into one complete personality, and that is what they call the awakening. And a person must be prepared for it, and there must be a team ready to maintain them and go into their mind and like a magic school bus and keep their stuff going and keep everything under control, because it'll kill a person if they're not ready for it. But as well, that is what this time is about. And the merging of the healing process is literally the merging of multiple personalities, and you gain access to, I think the end result is 9 times the amount of power intellectually and spiritually of what we are originally in this regular society, which is difficult to comprehend. Imagine having 9 times the access to memory, the ability to concentrate, the intellectual or capacity to hold information, like 9 times the amount of RAM on your computer, 9 times the amount of processing power. Okay, it would be like a supercomputer at that point. But that's the idea. That's the true version of humanity, of every last person. It's fragmented through the way the brain operates and the configuration. So, in concluding this entire large run-on sentence, I removed myself from anywhere that I found that I was being stimulated to emotionally respond. And this is just after I wrote something on emotional reactivity and how that feeds the parasite, and it is the primary method for gaslighting, satanic abuse, trauma, of getting fleshing out the mind and getting people to devote energy to these abusers. Don't respond to it. Don't respond, or respond 100% factually, honestly, and directly. Don't give any play any play into the illusion, any play into the nonsense, the mayhem, the emotional etheric, the emotional parasitism. Don't give any play to that. And so I removed myself from that. Then I spoke my mind in the way that I felt it necessary to do so. I said this before, all you can do is speak your piece, tell the truth, and let it alone. You can't do anything else. It's also not right to force people into an awakening. You cannot force people to merge personality together because they are not prepared for it unless they want it, and if they are not prepared for it, it will cause lasting damage. It's not how it works. It's just like in the movies, The Matrix, whatever. You cannot force a person to wake up unless they permit it, unless they choose it. And as well, you can't force a person to fragment either, unless they choose it. On some level, they have to invite that vampire, that trauma into their life on some level. The point is, we speak with our energy, we speak with our consent, we consent with our decisions and energy in life, and people don't know the language of the subconscious, and they don't realize how they're absorbing and enabling this stuff, these traumatic events, this disrespect by disrespecting themselves. You know, anything you put in your body, anything you do to someone else, you're enabling to come back at yourself, and it's consent, and that's part of the big game. And so I removed that, and then I went through, spoke my piece, and I went through, after that, at the end, I went through basically self-love and healing methods. Kind of sounds funny, but I literally hugged myself a few times. I don't even want to do it fully on camera, but and seriously, and I feel like I could feel parts of myself that were hurting, where I was having like these spasms and pain in the muscle, and there's muscle tension, kinesthesiology, there's an emotional connection to the muscles where there is trauma. For some reason, your brain goes, look, somewhere in me hurts, but I can't tell where or why. So here, now your bicep hurts, or your wrist hurts or something. And it puts the pain in these areas, and when you can target that, it's literally like you can say to your unconscious, all right, now I'm giving you attention that you need. Now I'm focusing on this issue. Now you have my attention. And you can use many methods. But and those are some of the methods. And so like you can say kinesthesiological, how am I doing here? Kinesthetic method is one that I used after the removing the attachments, the repeating cycle. There was a conversation in a location that I was giving into and responding with emotional bias. And I didn't have to remove everything, but there were certain comments and interactions with people where I was holding to an emotional bias. And where I removed that and just spoke my piece, felt fine. Then I went through this physical clearing, and I was trying to rest for hours, and I still haven't rested. But now it doesn't hurt, and because I was trying to rest, and I was just like in pain, like shuddering and like rolling back and forth. Now I feel fine. I'm pretty tired though from starting this 52 minutes ago. Weird. And time. And then I went through a physical kinesthetic muscle test, basically, system of finding where the pain was and telling my body it's okay, along with the spiritual liberation, emotional freedom that I felt from basically removing myself and from speaking my piece, and as well, since I was hurt, telling people that I wanted to help them as well, and really being present in the situation, emotionally and all that. And then basically confronting my unconscious, but in the body consciousness version, and like being here in the moment, confronting the physical reality version of it. And everything went away. And I also connected some personal things, and I see how it's basically manipulation about certain things that I wouldn't, I was letting people do to me and letting people say to me, and wasn't owning up to the fact that by the way I was responding, I was secretly, unconsciously agreeing with them, or I was trying to convert it right back at them and come down to the level that they were at in order to basically abuse me in a certain way. And it's not just this situation, but that acts as a connection point for all the other times in your life where that happens, which is why when you do this once, fully, it heals everything. Which is also, if there's a lot, it's going to take more than one time, more than one try. But the point is, the first time this fully, completely happens and you return to the surface, if you will, after going down and getting the treasure, yes, that's all you have to do, and you're there. And so I was also holding this back for a long time, and I feel that everything is synchronized with this occurrence, with this event in my life, the projects, the history, the unveiling, these weird psycho battle threats of war and political crazy stuff that's going on in society, and it's all adding up to something, and I feel we're very close to another big event, and I believe this is a big healing event, and I want to participate in it. I want to participate in others' healings. I shied away from self-healing. I shied away from the deprogramming, the DNA activation codes, the revival of that internal essence, that presence of self that hides when things get real tough, and basically these essences, these aspects of trauma come out. I don't shy away from it anymore, and as well, it's strange because in going through the tough event, both in history, both in the projects, and in other aspects of my childhood and my life, and just the last couple of days with the issues that I've basically had to confront, in going through that, it catalyzes my return to wholeness. Strange as it is, we can't beat that. Where there's a catalyst, where there's suffering, we're supposed to convert it into healing and strength, and that's how it works. That is a duality system, and we are getting out of that system to the point where we're not going to need wars. We're not going to need basically this type of trauma-based battle that develops this conscious, unconscious shift that then enables us to re-merge the two and go, oh wow, it's amazing. There's so much more than I thought was there. We're getting over that, which means humanity is fundamentally changing, and the definition of the human is going to change, and history itself is going to change. This has to do with everything that I am here to talk about and disclose, everything we saw and knew and so on and so forth. And again, mainly that's about the parasite. The parasite is being removed. Because the parasite is being removed, this main cosmic insanity, this split between one reality and the next, the bioptic mind, the brain mind control system, it's being solved. There was a code apparently entered into this matrix system that converts it into a horror show. And yeah, that's pretty much the basis of it. I even have some stuff written, but I didn't get to it all because I guess felt like saying it in my own words. And there's also more stuff. I'll probably put it in a next video. I never went back to those other previous posts and started the old, like the revelation that I wanted to in these posts that I made a while ago and I never caught back up to. I may start with this one. It'll come in a variety of ways. I don't force it though. And, but I do want to use what I have written to basically bring that out in some video forms. Alright, so thank you. I feel like there should be a more constituent, what am I doing with these words? A more compositional, no. A more substantial conclusion to this. But there's a lot more of the healing aspect. There are other aspects, there are energetic aspects, there are methods. But that is the basis of it. I wanted to provide an outline here for what this healing aspect is. And this is actually at every level of the 3 phases of unveiling that I have outlined, from the celebrity cloning and corruption at high places to the advanced technology and what that has shown, and these hybridized systems and the parasitic consciousness, down to the unveiling of cosmic intelligence, the way history has been altered through this temporal technology, this advanced technology, and the way humanity has been set back by this cosmic parasite, or this interdimensional parasite that has altered history and altered minds and fragmented the soul, and that this cosmic healing event is taking place. The personal, emotional, etheric clearing, cleansing, healing, etc. is at every single layer because it's a constant throughout it all. Although there is a pinnacle with the unveiling of the truth, and which is more of like the 3rd phase, and the finalizing of healing, the recurrence of our true presence on a higher level, which simply means we actually gain access to etheric or ancestral memory, and we gain access to these hidden psychic features of the body and the mind, which has been modified, which our bodies have been modified to shut out, and basically keep us like big dum-dums that just want to fight and pleasure the bodies. And it's just a suit, or like a layer. It's just a layer. It's not really a suit. That's kind of degrading. It's a very complex suit if you can make one like this, but apparently our minds are even more powerful in that, in the way we are now, we're limited by these systems. But the point is that when we know the truth, healing comes to the surface. And when the healing comes to the surface, a presence that has not been here because we were in this illusory personality version wearing a mask before returns, and so it's the return of humanity in that sense. And the last thing that I'll say is that literally the emotional cleansing and scanning and all that is a major aspect, if not the major aspect. But ultimately, all it is to find the truth. As long as the truth is unveiled and we see what's going on, who's running the show, who's controlling us, what's really going on, the healing is automatically instigated. That's part of what these machines can do. They basically unlock the memory in the mind, and it's horrifying. But in seeing that, there's this cathartic healing that has to occur. Otherwise, you'll just sit there and nobody really does that. It does happen, but anyway, so it's basically the unveiling of the truth that enables it.